Welcome to the summit. You are the web of life. And I can now introduce you to Tree. Welcome, Tree.
Hello. Hi, Suzanne, and thanks for having me on this summit.
Yeah, and thank you for being here. And you're a spiritual mentor, you're also a shaman, and you're also a transformational body worker and a certified TRE instructor.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's jump right into it. The body work that you do is about awakening the body, awakening to your true nature, you could say. And what is that about?
Okay. Although we're ultimately not the body, we are both human and divine, and our human part of us, our mammalian nervous system, can become very, very noisy. So I work with body work and TRE, which is trauma, tension, release work, particularly with people that are interested in awakening to their true nature. And as we're moving the flesh, either with TRE, which is unwinding fascia, shaking out muscle contraction and balancing our nervous system, or with body work, where we're moving the fascia and our trauma and emotions basically coming out of our body. So, there's a lot at the moment coming out about trauma and nervous system work, which is fantastic because if we do this work on ourselves, this is where we can do physical work on ourselves and working with other people, like working with someone to help you, to assist you with your trauma and your tension, to relax down into our true nature. I feel like nervous system states of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn can get stuck on in an activated loop. And so it makes the person either very contracted with anxiety or in flop with depression, defensive or fawning. And all those ways of being, it's not our fault. It's just our nervous system gets stuck in this activated loop. So doing all this work with our bodies can actually do the healing and quieten the whole system. So when we have a balanced nervous system, we have a quiet mind. It quietens automatically. So for some people, sitting quietly in meditation isn't the right thing for them yet. It's doing this body work. And eventually they'll be able to sit with a quiet mind very easily. I say that because my own nervous system was stuck in this sort of loop of everything, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, for probably 47 years. I'm now 58 and, obviously my nervous system can still activate when necessary, which is really helpful, but I'm no longer stuck in that loop. So living as if I am in danger when I'm not. Yeah. So, I could never meditate because I had too much sensation in my body. My mind was too noisy and it didn't feel safe for me to meditate. So I did a lot of different moving, some shamanic sounding. So there's ways to meditate if you're full of sensation that are more helpful, more useful for you than just really sitting in this soup, if you have a soup of sensation. And also too, just working through your trauma, working through the flesh with all different modalities. I work with transformational body work. I work with TRE. One devised by Diva Dorisha, the body work, and David Baselli has devised TRE, and they're both magnificent. But there's the massage therapist up the road. There's craniosacral, there's somatic experiencing. There's so many wonderful modalities to help us find our inner peace. Yeah, so that's mainly my work, helping us clear out, find inner peace, even working with the body work posturally, so that you know, the Kundalini can ignite, and we get more cleared out and more cleared out, so that you know, we can carry the light, we can be the light. This vessel can express the light more and more, the quieter the person becomes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like all these energies. The body is energy system, subtle energy and more gross energies, but it's all energy, and it's like we, with all this trauma and the mind always attaching to things and such stuck emotions, it's like all these blockages, you could say. And so with some body work, it's like all it can, the energy can free flow.
Beautiful. Yeah, yeah, it promotes freedom, because we can't be present. You know, we're stuck in story of past, or we're stuck in physiological response that makes us feel frightened or beaten, you know. So doing this work on ourselves means that we can actually sink down and be present, not a person being present, but be actual presence. So yeah, I think this work is really important. It's something that we can partake of on this awakening journey, because, you know, a lot of it is grace, but this is where we can actually do a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it is like, I mean, we are already our true nature, right? And but it's like we're so stuck in habits and patterns that has been created for our lives that we overlook it. And so your body work is kind of maybe releasing all these patterns, or make them kind of dissolve, or and that way you can recognize what you are, or it can help, or it may not either, but it's I can see how a lot of contractions, and if it's just stay contracted all the time in body mind, then it's harder to be that open flow of being, of just being.
Yeah, yeah, just being. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, so yeah, it is a process, you know, this healing journey, but it's sort of it feels incredibly positive to me, because I feel like this whole planet, if everyone worked on their own organism, their own nervous system, you know, one organism at a time, we could create inner peace. And then that refracts out into our environment, to our family and friends, to our community, and it does make a big shift. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
and
like,
it can help with shift in consciousness. You know, it can help alleviate the ego, because the ego is often in defense. You know, and yeah, I really feel like the physiology can hold the beingness hostage.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
And
everything is interrelated, mind and body. So I can see how it's all interrelated, and somehow all these contractions in the body also affects the mind, and the other way around, and everything. Um, it's good to loosen it up.
yeah, yeah, and it's really fascinating work to be aware of our nervous system, and to notice, to start to notice, and when you start to learn about nervous systems, you realize, and it's no fault of our own, you know, we're just we're really all trying to exist, you know, but we can actually become grounded, present, engaged, and life can be very different. As I said, I lived 47 years in this activated nervous system, and I did a lot of work for many years. And again, this healing journey, it's not easy. It's quite a warrior's journey. Sometimes we feel worse before we feel better. but it's eventually when we come out the other side and our nervous system comes to a balanced state, life is totally different. I didn't realize life could be so wonderful. Just being present.
Yeah. Now when it's not hijacked by the nervous system, or yeah, it sounds more natural now. Like it's just life naturally just is there as it is, and you're not adding something to it, or like hijacking it.
Yeah. So it does promote a lot of freedom. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the work that I do with the body. And I often say to people, you know, like our Buddha nature is expansion. You know, there's a sense of expansion, a soft belly, you know, relaxed shoulders. It's not a flop state where we've fallen down into depression. It's a sense of aliveness flowing through the body. So we're alert, we're awake, we're relaxed, and we're expanded. You know, our heart expands out into the world. And personhood for me was contraction, existential fear. It was a bit of a dread, really, personhood for me. So, yeah, I'm really grateful for my healing journey and series of awakenings that I've had. Yeah. So, and as you say, we are that. So how can we, you know, find that? How can we rest as that? How can we remove the smoke and mirrors? Yeah. And there are fantastic process to help with that. And there's grace and also, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's also like, I like the rest you say, the relaxation of the nervous system, of the body, or it's like it comes to rest in as its natural state.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Where we can respond. We can just respond as light.
Yeah.
Opposed to being reactive or defensive or in mind, in story. Yeah, we're just here. We're just here. I'm just here with you having a chat, you know. I don't know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, you know. And that's another magnificent thing about life, you know, living itself. Nothing really needs to happen except what's happening now. And it's not that you become passive. Life goes on, but in a more magnificent way.
Yeah.
The more light we can allow through our system, the more we can be that, the more wonderful the responses are to life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it's a more happy life, or and life with more ease. And
I'm amazed at the ease and the joy and the beauty. And, you know, I have heard the expression of heaven on earth. And yeah, and that is the case. It is heaven on earth. I've just, my daughter just gave birth and she had a very life-threatening cesarean, and I've just spent 6 days with her, and she couldn't hold the baby. So I was up in bed with her holding this magnificent newborn baby and passing it to her and back. And so the magnificence of our human existence, spending, this is a bit left of center, but it's just sort of been washing on me. I haven't slept for about 6 days, but yeah, just the magnificence of life and the fact that we get this human incarnation and we get this chance to work out our sanskaras and and to work out our karma and be on the planet. It's so magnificent. And prior to awakening, I never appreciated it. I didn't really appreciate it all the time. Now I say that, but I remember, and I'll bring in nature here, I remember often, and this is why we know we all are that, often you'll forget yourself and you will be as that. You just, because we're wired for survival, we don't recognize it and we don't give it any credit. But often when we're at the ocean or looking at a sunset or we're near a mountain or something in nature, takes our breath away. It's so big, it's so immense, it's so wonderful that it calls up the big, immense and wonderful in us. And we lose our small person or our ego self often in nature. And so a really wonderful thing is to give that some breathing space. When you notice that happening, give that some breathing space. You know, notice the oneness with nature, and that there's no small I there. And that's not all the time, but I'm sure every human has experienced that. I can look back on my life, a storm as a kid. You know, I was just pure consciousness. There was no contracted or conditioned self there. In nature, by a river or swimming in the ocean, often just that. At the birth of a friend's son, such a magnificent, you know, life event that, yeah, there's just sort of no room for that small ego identity there. Yeah, so often we are that, and it's really good to notice when we are that and give that some space.
Yeah, it's like when we forget about ourselves, when we are no one, that's who we are or what we are. Or isn't that interesting? It's like when we are gone, then we are what we are.
Yeah, that's the freedom. Yeah.
Because that is also an illusion. This person we think we are, it's the mind putting words and labels and identities onto something that's not even there. It's just what's happening here now all the time, and that's it, right? It's interesting how we put this whole illusionary character and person onto everything, onto this body mind too. It's
we're highly conditioned to be that, you know, by our parents, by our society. We are really highly conditioned to be that, and also these survival mechanisms sort of make us link with the body a lot too. You know, we think we are the body, but we are so much more. So we are the emptiness, and yet we can experience the fullness with this incarnation as well. So for me, it's both. I did spend 9 months in transcendent state where, you know, there was no recognition of my name or my person or what I would do in life. I just sat in bliss for 9 months, but it was very dysfunctional. You know, I couldn't really do anything. It was wonderful. And so that transcendent phase is magnificent, where we are just pure consciousness. But it seems to me that this time on the planet, even the awakening process has evolved, and we are coming to a time of embodied awakening. And so after transcendence, we make the return back to the body. So I now know I've got a name, and I now, you know my family and my work. I'm really functional now, more functional than I ever was. And yet there's not that drive from the ego anymore. There really is just following prompts in front of me. You know, you ring me up and say, would you like to do a summit? And feel that? Yeah, lovely, you know. The client's coming today, so I'll do body work on them. You know, the ego can be a big driver in the illusion, but it can, yeah, for me, it was just psychological suffering and angst. And so it is beautiful to live in this more free way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're not imprisoned by all these thoughts about being somebody and how to behave, and you're just yourself as you are in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is the natural state. And there's no real concern, you know, there is no real concern. So it's beautiful when fear falls away.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of fear. Yeah. That's conditioned. We are conditioned with this fear all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, we are conditioned, and also too because consciousness sort of works through the body. The body is ultimately in consciousness, but the body works, consciousness works through the body. So we do have this, you know, incredible system that will protect us. We'll go into fight and flight, or we'll freeze, you know, we'll do whatever we can to protect this organism. So again, I've come back to coming out of dysregulated states can be really, really helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like having a healthy body mind in a world functioning at its best, you could say.
Yes. Yeah. And I think healthy body mind. Yeah. I'm thinking even just like dropping the person, letting the person fall away. Then we just become our true nature. And then our body is a fantastic vessel, and I'm really appreciative of it. And mind becomes very, very still and silent.
Yeah.
And just does the jobs at hand. It's not dredging over the past or, you know, fantasizing into the future. Yeah, I can remember I spent a lot of time dredging and fantasizing, and I wasn't actually here.
Yeah. Yeah, the groundedness of being here. Yeah. The mind has a tendency to always go somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, and the heaven on earth, the bliss and the beauty and the wonder is being in the present moment. It's better than any fantasy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very simple, you know, it's the smell of a newborn's head. It's the frost on the grass, you know, it's the magnificence of the simplicity of this experience, you know, this soul's experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's life. It's life happening in all its manifestations and phenomena.
Yeah.
Yeah. And why would there have to be more than that? Like, isn't it plenty? You know, if you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a lot to do with, you know, our conditioning is, yeah. Yeah, I don't feel I have to be anything anymore. I just am. And that's more than enough. Like that's wholeness. I did want to say though, you know, after these awakenings, and I sort of, because I forget things, I wrote a little list of, you know, I had awakenings into oneness, death of ego, kundalini, chakra openings, embodiment. I just want to say that this is, although it feels so whole and so wonderful because it's such a big shift in consciousness, but I'm beginning to understand it's the beginning of the involution process. And, you know, there's so much more. I follow. Mayor Barber is my guru, and he talks about until we reach the 7th plane, we still have ego.
Yeah, I can imagine it's like almost layers, like an onion, right? And you can, yeah.
Yeah, and just falling deeper and deeper into the mystery. So, you know, it's a huge shift in consciousness to have that person fall away, and you feel so whole. But I know it's just the beginning of, you know,
Yeah.
more journey for the soul. But at least there's not the psychological suffering and you know, that terrible human condition. It's a much more wonderful human conditioning. Yeah, not to say that we can't be called back and contract into person, but we know we're so much more, so it's easier to let go and drop back down again. Yeah.
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 And it's like the layers of the onion. We don't know what it is. It's unknown, right? It's just let it reveal itself to
Yes.
be known or not, but it doesn't matter. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that letting go. It's like letting go in the body, just letting go, just surrendering to the mystery. You know, we are the mystery. And so surrendering to ourselves more and more, you know, is the beautiful process. Yeah.
Yeah. And that surrendering is a lot about not holding on to the thoughts that becomes, you know, like they become beliefs, and suddenly you have this whole story made up, which is just like a rainbow is just a story. It's just in many ways it's not even really there here now, right? So it's a lot just looking through all that and the layers.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just letting go of it all. And yeah, just being presence itself and responding to life. And, you know, a lot of people have fear around awakening that they will not be a good mother anymore, or a good at their work, and you know, things will change. But I find that I'm a better mother than I was, because I have no projections for my kids. You know, they have a lot more freedom. I'm a more delightful grandmother than I was, you know, as a mother. So I feel that you become more wonderful, more productive in this relative existence. You don't become less. You still can do your roles. You know, you can do your mothering, but it's not so much a role. Before it was a contracted role with ideas and identity and projections. Now it's so much freer. It's just responding to what's needed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that sounds beautiful. Like it's like a natural flow. And
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, you know, after awakening, there can be a period of adjustment, you know, but the universe tends to support that, you know, hopefully. Or, you know, you might need to ask for help to support you around, you know, when person falls away, you know, you might need support for a while, but eventually when you become embodied again and life starts to live itself, everything, you do become more effective. Yeah.
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 And it's like nature. You mentioned nature, and out in nature it is all just flowing naturally. And
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you start to see, as I look out here, you know, I've got mountains and trees and the sky, and it's absolute perfection. You know, it is, nature is perfection. And then we start to come down the species, and I think we probably get around to perhaps domestic creatures that are around humans, and we start to see animals contracting and having, you know, what Eckhart Tolle talks about, the pain body. You know, you can see that they're starting to become affected, and humans with, you know, all their trauma start to contract and form up. And Yeah, and that's the journey, you know. It's the journey of, again, coming out of that into our expansive nature. I just wanted to say one thing, Susan, was about trauma. My definition of trauma and the way I work is, yes, there's very hard traumas and they're obvious, but also I talk about trauma as any time our system's overwhelmed. So it could just be a fight with our spouse, or you know, money difficulties. We haven't got the money for the bills this month, or you know, even just an overactive mind can impact upon our system, on our body and our nervous system. So that's my definition of trauma. It's very broad, and but it has an impact on the body, and what we can't process all gets stored in our body. And it'll often surface, you know, we'll be re-triggered around something when we're in a safe space to work through it. Usually, you know, if we're still in a traumatic situation, it's not the time. But if we're in a safe space with food and shelter and support, often the stuff will start to come to be worked on, and even intergenerational trauma. So not ours, but our parents and grandparents. Some of their stuff will surface, and it can feel quite alien, but to us, like, what are these sensations? Yeah, you know, what is this? I can remember my whole life going into public toilets and being in a panic, and going as quickly as I could, and to the extent of not even flushing in case someone would know I was ready to come out. And I'm like, well, what is that? And when my mum was dying, she died at home, but she was still in hospital at this time. And she went to the toilet and she said, come in with me and don't shut the door, please. And yeah, it was like all her, you know, something had occurred to her in a small room, and that was traumatic. And so all her trauma was expressing itself in me. And I have never had a bad situation in a toilet or in a small room. So yeah, that's just an example of how things will surface. Now, that could have been learned behavior from living with my mother, but often it can just be intergenerational. Things will occur and you'll be like, oh, what's this? But we can now work through it.
Yeah, sometimes we just don't know where the trauma is coming from or where our issues are coming from. And I guess also maybe we don't always have to know where they're coming from, but just kind of.
No.
Yeah.
And often in TRE, you don't know. You know, sometimes people will have an understanding of what's coming, but mostly in TRE, it's just releasing out of the body, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it's like loving the body, right? You're embracing the body that way, right?
Yeah, I think doing this TRE work, which is really just shaking out contracted muscle tissue and releasing fascia, is a wonderful way to have a relationship with your body. You know, in the West, we're sort of not so much. I'm nearly 60, so I'm not so fascinated, you know, with the appearance of my body. But in the West, we were sort of conditioned to be very conscious about the appearance of our body, but we didn't actually develop a relationship around what our body's feeling, what it's carrying, where it's tight, how our nervous system is. If we were conditioned to have more understanding around those parts of our body and develop a relationship where we're freeing, and after we free a lot of trauma, then we just come to a beautiful, almost cosmic human relationship with our body moving. And that is a really lovely way to develop awareness and relationship with our body. Yeah. So it's a different way of seeing our body. It's being with our body and listening, a lot of listening and awareness around our body.
Yeah, like being present with the body, like being here.
Being here. Yeah. And just, simple things like as we're sitting, noticing where we're tight, where we're holding tightness. Is it the belly or the buttocks? Often we grip on to life, and it was necessary at one point in our life, or a few points, or for years. But is it necessary now? And just reminding ourselves, how am I in this room? And just using one nice long out breath to let go into every moment. So we might notice ourselves perched up as personhood. And this is a lot of my work in workshops we do. So relaxing the muscles on the out breath, just everything. Letting go.
Yeah. Wow, that's wonderful. And like your workshops, and how can people get in touch with you? What's your website?
It is www.awakeningthroughthebody.com, but it's .au for Australia. That's important, AU. And yeah, I have workshops, and I do a lot of healing work with people, and workshops, spiritual mentoring. Yeah. Bit of Kundalini support. Yeah. There's lots of info on that website. I'm actually starting a series on, I wrote that down here somewhere. The next series I'm doing is Coming Home to Your True Nature, and the one after that is just oneness experiences. So getting people to realize more that they are that, and dwelling in that together. And sometimes, you can reflect yourself in nature, or in a teacher or a guru, or whatever way works for you, but yeah, that's the next bits of work I'll be doing. A
lot of energetic work. It's wonderful. Well, I so much appreciate it, that you took your time, and thank you for being here.
That's a pleasure. It's been really lovely to talk. Really lovely to talk.
Thank you.